Hi, I'm Toby Klein.
I'm Andy DeSantis. We're members of the FedEx ALPA R&I Committee. As a result of negotiations, FedEx pilots will now have three options for receiving their future retirement and benefits.
We'll explain all three options included in the TA. Please note that all of today's examples are based on earnings of $400,000 and $300,000 to show when cash over the cap is available and when it's not.
Although IRS limits typically adjust annually, we're using known values for these examples, specifically the current 2026 limits for 401A17, 415C, and 402G. In addition, we're using the 2029 structure to illustrate the different options. On January 1, 2028, when the new options are implemented, contributions will be a combined 18% for both Option 2 and Option 3. Starting January 1, 2029, both options increase to 19%. For Option 2, that's 10% to the market-based cash balance plan and 9% to the PRSP. For Option 3, it's 19% to the PRSP.
Now, we've identified some confusion around IRS limits and how they affect the new options. We'll walk through examples, and you can always dart us at fdx.alpa.org. Andy, can you tell us about Option 1?
All right, Option 1 is the legacy pension plan with an increased final average earnings cap, also known as the FAE, from $260,000 to $340,000. This change will be effective on April 8, 2026, assuming ratification of the TA. This means all pilots who retire on or after April 8, 2026 through December 31st, 2027 will automatically retire under Option 1 with the increased $340,000 FAE cap.
Now, unchanged is the 9% non-elective contribution to the PRSP under Option 1.
All right, moving on to Option 2, you'll also see an increase in your FAE cap from $260,000 to $290,000. You'll be enrolled in the new market-based cash balance plan and receive a company non-elective contribution to the PRSP along with cash over the IRS caps. Your years of service will be frozen and your FAE will increase to $290,000, which you'll have the rest of your career to reach.
Now, using the 2029 structure and the 2026 IRS limits, earnings of $400,000 would result in a total contribution of $40,000 to the MBCBP and $32,400 to the PRSP. Now, in addition, $3,600 would be paid as cash over the cap and taxed as ordinary income for a total of $76,000 for the year. We'll walk through how this affects your PRSP bucket shortly.
Here's what Option 2 looks like with earnings of $300,000. In this same structure, earnings of $300,000 will result in $30,000 to the market-based cash balance plan and $27,000 to the PRSP with no cash over the cap for a total of $57,000.
Now for Option 3. This option is similar to Option 2 in terms of pension changes. Your years of service are frozen, and your FAE cap increases to $290,000. Instead of an MBCBP, the company contributes 19% directly to the PRSP starting January 1st, 2029. In this example, with 2029 earnings of $400,000 and using 2026 IRS limits, $68,400 would go to the PRSP, while $7,600 would be paid as cash over the cap for a total of $76,000.
With $300,000 in earnings, the full $57,000 would go to the PRSP with no cash over the cap.
Looking at these side by side, Option 1's FAE cap increases to $340,000, and your years of service continue to a maximum of 25 years. PRSP contributions remain at 9% with no cash over the cap feature. For Option 2, the FAE cap increases to $290,000, and your years of service are frozen. This option includes the market-based cash balance plan increasing from 9% to 10% on January 1st, 2029. PRSP contributions remain at 9% and include cash over the cap.
Option 3 also increases the FAE cap to $290,000 with years of service frozen. Contributions to the PRSP increase from 18 to 19% on January 1st, 2029, and this option also includes cash over the cap. For pilots who choose option 2 and experience a long-term disability event, contributions to both a market-based cash balance plan and PRSP will be made at 85% of what they would be if the pilot were actively working. Using 2026 IRS limits and the highest 12 consecutive months over the last 36 months, this example reflects a pilot with earnings at the IRS limit of $360,000.
Even if earnings exceed that amount, we must still use the 2026 IRS compensation limit of $360,000 to calculate the benefit. In this example, total contributions to the MBCBP and the PRSP would equal $58,140, which is 85% of the active contribution level.
As IRS limits increase over time, contributions while on LTD would also increase up to those limits, assuming your highest 12 consecutive months support it.
This next example shows a pilot whose highest 12 consecutive months were $360,000 on option 3. The active contribution would be $68,400, while LTD contributions would be $58,140. All right, this is the transition timeline under options 2 and options 3. Years of service are frozen at the time of the transition. The FAE increases to $290,000. You will have the rest of your career to achieve this higher FAE cap.
To avoid duplicative benefit accruals during the transition period, pilots will accrue legacy pension plan benefits for 7 months, June 1st through December 31st, of the 12 months of the 2027 plan year. Pilots will immediately begin accruing retirement benefits under either the MBCBP or the enhanced PRSP effective January 1st, 2028 for those pilots that select options 2 or 3. So now let's talk about the PRSP and the different ways to fill the buckets. Since this applies to all the options, again, we're using 2026 IRS limits, but as those limits change, so will contributions and amounts of cash over the cap for options 2 and 3. For option 1, both the company and pilots can contribute to the PRSP with a maximum annual limit of $72,000. Let's assume earnings of $400,000. Starting with pilot contributions, you can contribute up to $24,500 in pre-tax or Roth contributions. On the first $1,000, the company matches $500.
Now, the company also makes a 9% non-elective contribution based on earnings up to the IRS compensation limit of $360,000 in 2026. That results in a maximum company contribution of $32,400. Now, you add these together, the $500 company match, the $24,500 in employee deferrals, and $32,400 of company non-elective contributions, you get $57,400, leaving $14,600 of remaining space in the PRSP. After-tax contributions or excess sick payment can be used to fill that remaining $14,600, but use caution when using after-tax contributions because they can crowd out company contributions if you exceed that amount.
As shown on this slide, the option 2 PRSP bucket fills in the same way. The difference is that once your income exceeds the IRS compensation limit, any excess is paid to you as cash. This example assumes $400,000 in annual earnings. If you maximize your personal PRSP contributions in 2029 using 2026 IRS limits, total contributions would be $40,000 to the MBCBP and $72,000 to the PRSP. $32,400 is company money, with an additional $3,600 paid as cash over the cap, for a total of $115,600, of which $112,000 is qualified retirement dollars.
For option 3, with earnings of $400,000, Notice that the PRSP bucket is nearly filled by company contributions. In 2029, this could leave as little as $3,100 of remaining space for personal contributions with the company match. Using 2026 IRS limits, company contributions would total $68,400 plus any match. If you fully maximize your contributions, you'll have $72,000 in the PRSP, $68,900 from the company. Additionally, you would receive $7,600 as cash over the cap for a total of $79,600, of which $72,000 is qualified retirement dollars.
If the TA is ratified, pilots will have a future election window to choose one of the three options. Educational resources will be available, including an online modeler to help guide your decision.
All right, pilots who retire between April 8, 2026 and December 31st, 2027 will automatically fall under Option 1, and this is because Option 2 and 3 do not become effective until the 1st of January, 2028. Pilots that do not make a selection during the selection window will just default into Option 1. Now, we hope this has helped clarify your retirement choices, and if you have any questions, please send us a dart at fdx.alpa.org. And as always, be safe out there, and we'll see you next time.